Hey, everybody, and welcome to the Even If podcast. I'm your host, Christy Lowe, and I'm so glad you're back with us again this week. I've got Tischa Van de Reep on the show this week, and y'all, it's a great story. It's a great conversation, and I cannot wait to get you to that. You know, it's been spring break around here, and I don't know if you guys, wherever you're listening to it, some of you are experiencing still snow and cold, but some of you are starting to get some glimpses of warmth and little glimpses of spring. And if that's you, man, that's where we are. It's starting to get a little warmer here. We're starting to get outside a little bit more. It's baseball season around here, so I'm going to lots of baseball games, and oh man, you know, it's just a fun time of year. And so I hope wherever you are that you're doing well. I hope that wherever you are, you're catching glimpses of his goodness in each season. And I'm just being reminded of that over and over right now, just in my walk and where I am. So wherever you are, I hope that you're seeing his goodness right where you are, in the middle of the chaos, in the middle of the heartbreak, or the middle of the really hard things, or just the humdrum in the daily in and out life. I'm just praying that wherever you are, that you're seeing him and his goodness and his faithfulness. Before we get to today's show, I want to remind you, if you haven't gotten the newsletter signed up, go over to evenifpodcast.com, scroll about halfway down. It's going to be right there. It's going to get you a Spotify playlist. It's music that I love and that I listen to. And so go over there, sign up for that if you haven't already done it. The other is, if you have a story that you think might be a good fit for the show, a time when the Lord showed up for you, some season of life or an event or a moment or a situation that you just saw his goodness and his faithfulness, I would love to hear from you. My email address is info@evenifpodcast.com. You can also get that in the show notes, or you can DM me on social media. We're on Instagram and Facebook, and those are in the show notes as well. I want to get you to today's show as quick as I can, so I'm not going to dally today. Tischa is a wonderful human, and I think you're going to really enjoy just the beautiful spirit that is within her in this lively and poignant conversation. So without further ado, friends, here you go. Hi, Tischa Van de Reep. How are you today?
I'm doing well, Christy. So good to see you.
I know, it's good to see your sweet face. I haven't seen you since I think August, when we saw each other in Houston,
Oh,
wasn't it?
yeah, that was
Yeah,
fun running
it
into
was fun.
you.
Yes. Oh my gosh. We're going to talk today about the challenges of being faithful. You and I have kind of been talking before we started about that. And you've faced your share of challenges of being faithful. We're going to kind of touch on some of those and then just encourage people. And I'm excited about our conversation because I think you're one of those people that I could just talk to for, we could just talk for hours. And so I think it's great that people can just kind of jump in and just ride along, people. This is going to be a fun ride with us today. But before we get started, just tell everyone a little bit about yourself, your family, and where you live, and then we'll get going.
Okay, hi everyone. I'm Tisha. I'm from Trinidad and Tobago. So I'm a Caribbean girl. And my husband, Harold, he's a Dutchman. So Europe meets the Caribbean. And we live in Houston, Texas. So there you go. I'm a born again Texan. I tell everyone I'm a born again Texan. I love it here. We have two boys. They're teenagers. Julian is 17, almost 18 now, and Aiden is 15, almost 16.
Oh, okay.
And in addition to being a Bible teacher, and I'm also a mental health mom.
Yes.
Our son Julian had been diagnosed with a great range of mental illnesses, but we only use it to bring us closer to the Lord and to help others in their mental health journey as well. So that's pretty much me in a nutshell.
Yeah. Well, I love that I follow her on Instagram, and we'll link that for you guys in the show notes. But she'll go on Instagram Live, and I still haven't figured out how to do Instagram Live. So you may have to teach me how to do that. But I love seeing you on Instagram Live. Those are so encouraging. And sometimes Julian even comes on the show with you and you'll share and the two of you will talk about things. I love it. It's beautiful. I love that you are so open about here is our struggle. Here is what we're walking through. Do you want to just kind of fill everybody in a little bit on kind of what you guys are dealing with and where things are right now for with that?
Oh, sure. So in 2021, December 2021, Julian was 15 years old and he was diagnosed with ADHD, high functioning autism, bipolar disorder, anxiety, depression, and psychosis.
Mhm.
And so he spent his Christmas vacation that year in a facility 5 hours a day, every day, being further evaluated for medication and treatment recommendations and so on, while we just kind of try to figure out what this was going to look like for us.
Right. Wrap
They
your mind around it.
Yes, they gave us the prognosis that he would be schizophrenic by the age of 25. And in the months that followed, he did start hallucinating, hearing voices, going into psychotic episodes. And psychotic episodes, a lot of people just think like Psycho and that shower scene.
Yeah.
They think scary things. But for him, it's just confusion, not knowing where he was, not knowing what was happening, things just seemed off and different to him. He would try to read his school book and the words didn't make sense. And
Oh, wow. How frustrating
so
and
yeah,
confusing for him.
yeah, so it just became very scary. Or he would be in his classroom one moment, blink his eyes, and find himself in the principal's office, and he didn't know how he got there because he would lose time.
Wow.
And so that particular day, they had actually found him curled up in a ball on the floor in the bathroom and brought him to the principal's office. So he didn't even know he had gone to the
What
bathroom
did?
and what happened there. Nobody knows. So things like that. It's not, he doesn't go like crazy Son of Sam kind of situation. He just gets lost and confused, and he actually becomes like a 3-year-old child. And
Mm.
so you kind of have to take him by the hand and just make sure he feels safe. He loves to get noodles and bubble baths when he's in an episode because
Hmm.
that soothes him.
Yeah.
So we had to learn what was happening with him, how to deal with it. We had to learn that there were times when we'd be talking to our son and he wouldn't even be there. He wouldn't
Present.
even be mentally present, even though he was physically present. So yeah, it
Sure.
was a hard journey, a lot of lessons to learn. And just as parents, we had to give up the traditional hopes and dreams
Hmm.
um, that you have for your teenagers, and just kind of put his future into God's hands. And he's since part of his condition as well. He has trouble processing math, for
Okay.
instance, and
Okay.
so there's no reasonable path for him to graduate because he just can't do. He hasn't been able to do past eighth grade math. And so we've withdrawn him from high schools since, and he's going to be doing his GED. And so we
Mhm.
hope that he can handle the math for that. We actually found him a tutor to help him with that. So we're hoping that he could at least get a GED and then see where his future can go from there because he's so articulate. He can write an essay like nobody's business.
Oh,
He's so smart in those kinds of areas, history
yes.
and literature and things like that. But math he cannot do. So we're hoping that we could at least get him his GED and help him to secure a future.
Absolutely. Whenever I had reached out to you and said, "Hey, let's come and do this," and I said, "Why don't we talk about the challenges of being faithful in our lives. I didn't know whenever I reached out to you the extent of I knew that you were parenting the child of a mentally ill child. I knew that, and I knew that that would come with some very difficult challenges. I don't know that
Mhm.
I had any idea until I was sitting here in this moment. I was putting myself in your place and thinking about my own I have a 17-year-old too, and they're the same age, and navigating the challenges that he has, and we all have them, but we're not dealing with that. But how has that shaped your faith? How has this, you have been walking with Christ, today isn't your first day to be a Christian. You've been doing this for a while. Um, it, but how has this shaped your faith? What does that look
Well,
like?
it's funny because so I throw tantrums with God on a regular basis. And
Yes, me too.
and he just kind of laughs and waits for me to chill out
Yes.
and enough to hear him. But there were two times in my faith walk where I had, and they weren't spoiled brat tantrums, they were totally from the guts, from the depths of my soul, crying out for my child. When Julian was 8, and the doctors believed that this is what might have caused his mental illness, he was very sick and had to be hospitalized. He'd had CT scans done and spinal taps, and they couldn't figure out what was wrong with him. We had to rush him to the ER, and they rushed him to the hospital. And he spent about 4 days in the hospital, very high fevers. He couldn't sit up. He would collapse if he even just sat up. And he just had this sharp, horrible pain in his head. And he would hold on to his head and just scream the most
Oh, baby.
blood curdling scream, this 8-year-old kid. And we didn't know what happened. And it took him literally months of getting over that. Thankfully, it was just before summer vacation. And so he had the whole summer, but he couldn't be in the sun, and he had to eat lying down. He couldn't sit up to eat. It was just a long
Oh,
time
oh
of
my.
just getting over this. Yeah. And we didn't, to this day, we don't know what caused it.
I was going to
We
say, y'all
don't
never knew what happened.
ever received the diagnosis. We don't know what it was.
Wow.
And because there are no brain scans from before he was ill, doctors can't confirm whether that happened. That's what led to what's happening with him now. But so anyway, his first night in the hospital, I screamed out to God and I said, "We don't want to be here. We're in this children's hospital." And I screamed out and I told God, we didn't want to be here. I was so
Yeah.
mad. I was so angry. And this quiet voice spoke into my being and just said, "Nobody does."
Mm.
And it humbled me so much because all around us were kids who were dying, who were chronically ill, who had so much less hope than Julian, and it humbled me. And so I surrendered my children to God again that night, and it really just changed my perspective. So then there was another day after Julian got diagnosed with his mental illnesses. I'd parked in the garage and I'm just sitting in the dark and I'm just bawling and just saying, listen, okay, if this is what we have to do, if this is what we have to live with, then show me in your word. Show me in your word how to hope in this. Show me in
Yeah.
your word the comfort that I can get from this. And ever since, he's been showing me in his word. And it was funny because there was like one week where literally everywhere I went, Romans 12:12 showed up. Be joyful in hope, patient in affliction, and faithful in prayer. Everywhere, somebody had it on a little sign in their office. It showed up on a book cover. It was like everywhere. I'm
He was like,
scrolling
I'm gonna
social
get
media.
this through your
Yes,
head. Yes,
exactly.
yes.
so many things. And then another time I'm reading in First Kings 17 about Elijah and the widow, and the widow's son died, and Elijah lays on top of this boy's body, and he's praying for the life to come back into this child again. And the boy rose from the dead. And that was the first case in scripture of anyone ever being raised from the dead. And so here is Elijah praying for something that he'd never even heard of happening before. And it just kind of encouraged me, pray for the unprecedented. So here are these doctors saying, my child's going to be schizophrenic. Here are these doctors, here are all these statistics online saying he'll be homeless, on drugs, incarcerated, or dead by the age of 30. There's all these awful things.
Sure.
And it's like,
that nobody wants for your baby.
Yeah. And it's like, but I don't have to believe that. Elijah didn't believe that this child had to stay dead, even though he'd never heard of any such thing happening before. And he prayed to God and trusted him for it. And so it just encouraged me. And so God just has been showing me. And so it's just funny because I've been writing more than ever, I've been teaching more than ever, and it's God has been such a companion to me in this time as a mother. So, and then to see Julian's courage and openness and bravery and how much of an advocate for his own mental health he is.
Yes.
It brings so much hope and promise that he can be a voice for a generation of kids who are suffering the way he is, but they're suffering silently. And so, yeah, it's just been more of a blessed journey it's turned out to be, because I see it all as God's invitation to draw closer to him.
There's beauty in the suffering. There's
Yes.
beauty in the pain.
Yes.
In fact, I think there are things that are of that intimate beauty that you only get through suffering or the struggle. And you're definitely you can go either way. You can either run from God in the middle of these challenges, or you can just yell at him and say, I don't want to be here, and let him give you the hope you need.
Right. Absolutely.
I'm glad that, and I'm thankful for one that you're doing that, because so many kids don't have the advocate that Julian has. And so he's very, very lucky to have you as his mama. That's for sure. You have had quite a life story, this isn't like you just woke up and you were like, hey, by the way, this is the only thing that's ever happened to me. You tell a story, or you have shared before on Instagram that you were actually homeless at one point. I actually don't know the details of this, but I want to know this because somehow you've ended up in Texas, and I don't know how you went from Trinidad. You met your husband, and didn't y'all meet? No, where did y'all meet? Hold on.
Trinidad. He was there for work, yeah.
Okay, and then y'all ended up moving there.
Yeah, and I was homeless before that. So
what happened?
So I was in college in Miami, actually, Miami, Florida.
Okay.
And I was an RA, a resident assistant, in charge of a dorm. And it's kind of crazy to go back all those years and tell this again. But
it's okay.
The phone line that I had in my room was an office phone line, a university office phone line. And what I didn't know, but soon discovered because a friend came in to tell me, is that I could type in a code and then I could call anywhere long distance for free. So my friend who came in to tell me this wanted to use my phone, and he was calling. His mother was stationed at Germany or Israel or something. He had a girlfriend in Japan. He was calling all over the world. And I was like, how are you doing this? Like, how do you afford this? We're college students, right? We live on ramen and nothing else.
Oh, yeah.
And if we're lucky, right?
Yeah, Totino's
So
pizzas that were 99
yeah.
cents back then.
Oh,
Yeah.
the 59-cent bean burritos from Taco Bell.
Yep, those
That's
two.
so anyway, so he told me about the codes. And so I started using the codes. I had a boyfriend in Canada at the time. I had, of course, my family and friends in Trinidad. And so I was just using the codes. It didn't occur to me that it was like embezzlement or stealing or
We're like
whatever.
wrong. Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, needless to say, got busted and got suspended because I had
Oh,
one semester left to finish and I was a scholarship student and all my grades had been excellent. So the other guy got expelled, but they decided not to expel me because of my record to that point. And so they said, you're suspended for a semester and then you can come back and finish. But you're not allowed on campus. You're not allowed to stay on campus anymore.
okay.
And so, and then of course we had to pay the phone bill. So the
Sure.
phone bill then was $8,000, which this is in the
Oh,
90s. So that's
yeah.
like a lot of money. And
Holy
if you
cow.
convert it to Trinidad currency, which is what my parents worked for, it was 50 grand in Trinidad currency.
Okay.
So my dad had to pay $50,000 and I was no longer allowed to stay on campus. And so he's just like, yeah, I don't have money for you to get
No.
your
He's
apartment.
like, I just paid the school 50 grand. Yeah.
Right. And so I said, oh, don't worry about it. My friends are like my dorm room. I never locked my door because my room was home base for all my off campus friends. And they wore my clothes, they ate my food. I helped them with their papers. It was just a natural family that
Yeah.
we had. So I was like, yeah, my friends are gonna, but they didn't. When I went back up, everyone turned their back and nobody said you could stay here. And so I had nowhere to stay. So I wasn't like sleeping on the street, but I was couch surfing a lot.
Uh-huh.
And then I tried to get locked into the library every night
Yeah.
just
Yep.
so that I could sleep in
Sleep
there, but they
there.
kept finding me and kicking me out. And I had a professor bring a mattress into his office for me, but I thought that would look inappropriate, so I never used it. Um, a friend of mine offered me her Camaro to sleep in. I rode the bus a lot. I had these two big blue duffel bags that I never unpacked because I had never had anywhere to unpack them.
Mhm.
So, yeah. So basically, I just spent every day just going to
That's
classes and not knowing where I was going to sleep that night and riding the bus a lot until I could figure out who would let me sleep over at their place. And so, yeah, a lot of times I stayed at this cockroach infested apartment in South Beach where the girl who lived there, she was a heroin junkie. It was just
oh,
scary and creepy. Yeah, it was,
sure.
there were just a lot of, because I never did hard drugs, you know, so it was just scary and creepy
Yeah.
a lot of the
Yeah.
time. Yeah, it was just a lot of kind of wandering around with these two giant bags on
Yeah.
my own. Yeah, so, but I got
Were
all A's that semester.
you
I got
still
a
wow.
4.0 that semester and I graduated with a 3.8 GPA. Yeah. So go figure.
Well, I'll have to share with you my college story sometime. We we have some similar veins. Okay, I'm gonna tie this together. Were you a believer at that point? No,
Not at all.
no.
But whenever I look back now, there was this um bus stop that I used to have to wait at to get to school from that cockroach infested apartment. And the lot that it was on was always covered with crack pipes and needles and condoms. It was this It
Yeah.
used to be a building that got knocked down, and so it was just this empty lot of rubble. It was
Hmm.
gross. It was downtown Miami. It was very gross. And it was not a safe place for a young woman who is 120 pounds, so skinny, with two giant bags with her.
Yeah.
Um,
You
it
looked
wasn't a
homeless,
safe
I'm
place to
sure.
be. Yeah, exactly. But I always felt safe. I never ever felt scared. And I always wondered, I actively wondered, how come I don't feel scared?
Oh.
I'd be walking that lot in the middle of the night
Mhm.
and like, why am I not scared? I never felt scared. No one ever came near me. And and whenever I look back in my memories and I see me sitting on that bench waiting for the bus, I always see someone beside me, even though no one ever was in my memory. It's and I
It's Jesus.
recognize how much Jesus was with me in that season. And so yeah, it's just a really beautiful thing how he was wooing me for so many years before I actually
Sure.
felt ease, you know.
How did you come to know Jesus?
Whew, okay. Well, I was a Catholic.
Did I just open a can of worms? The look on your face was like, buckle up, girl.
Well, no, just it was just it's not, I guess, the normal story because I was home alone. And so I was raised Catholic. So I knew the gospel, but I knew it here. I didn't know it here. And I didn't really fully understand it. I didn't get it at all.
Okay.
And so I had just kind of come to believe that Jesus was a cool guy like Martin Luther King or Gandhi, that kind of thing.
Sure.
And so I believed in God, even though I didn't quite know what that was even.
Hmm.
So we were living in Houston for a few months, and my father-in-law in Holland got diagnosed with brain and lung cancer.
Oh.
And so Harold went to Holland to be with his dad. And so every day I would call just to check in on how he was. This was the most amazing man.
Mm.
And there was one night that he had pain all night, and this man was suffering so much. And I just found myself just bawling and bawling and begging God to have mercy on Papa, just have mercy on him. And so I'm crying and I'm praying and I'm begging, and it's just like tears and snot and everything. It's just a mess. I'm a mess. And for some reason, in the middle of me being a mess on the floor of the bedroom, I pick up the remote and I turn the TV on. I don't know what made me do that. I don't know why. But there was a preacher on the TV, and he had just finished preaching, and he was at the end and he said, if you haven't asked Jesus into your heart, ask him now.
Oh.
And I just it was like a reflex. He said it, so I did it. And I just said, Jesus, please come into my heart. And I felt something leap in my body. And I was like, oh my gosh,
This is real.
he's alive. He's real. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it totally blew my mind. And when I stood up, I was completely different. I felt completely different from when I went down. And it was just amazing because my marriage with Harold wasn't great at that time. We'd been struggling a lot, and several times I'd considered just taking the kids and going back to Trinidad. And I was miserable in Houston at first, and all that changed. Everything just changed. And just the angry, I had a lot of baggage with me. I'd been molested as a kid, I'd been raped, I'd been through stuff. And so I had all my baggage that I brought into the marriage. And I just felt him working on me already. I felt just, I don't know how to describe it except just divine wisdom and understanding and peace. I finally understood that the things I was expecting Harold to do for me, only Jesus could do for me. that
Yeah.
healing that I needed from all the junk of my life. Harold couldn't fix that. Only Jesus could. And so it was all these things that just, it was like,
It
just,
was a baptism. I think that's the baptism of the Holy Spirit, like where
yeah,
he just came
yeah,
and invaded your life and sealed
yes,
you with the
yeah.
redemption of God.
It was
Wow.
amazing. Yeah. And that was it. And it took a whole year before I bought a Bible because I still didn't get that a Bible was part of the faith, like it was a necessary part of the faith.
Uh-huh.
And finally I was like, okay, I need to know more about this God that I believe in. And so I
Huh.
bought a Bible and signed up for Bible study at a church that had a similar name to the street I lived on at the time. So I kind of picked it kind of randomly off the internet and
Yeah.
started Bible study.
Okay.
And my mind was blown. And the rest is history. I just got voracious for the word. I started just reading and journaling on my own. And
Mm-hmm.
within 3 years of that first Bible study, I was writing my own Bible study.
Wow.
So,
That is beautiful. I love that. That is absolutely beautiful. You
thank
know,
you.
I think we think that if our story doesn't look like, well, I was 8 and I was at church with my mommy and daddy and then I walked down to the preacher and then no, God can meet you
Yeah.
anywhere.
Yeah. I had
Anywhere.
no
In fact,
Christian.
like, well, and that's what I was going to say. I think that in fact, I think we're more receptive to what God's doing in our lives when it's just messy. Like
Yeah.
when it's
Yeah.
I,
Yeah.
I, yeah. In fact, I had some people come on my show last spring and she shared her story. My listeners who listened to Lisa Swafford and Andrew Swafford share about their story. She talked about how she received Christ just praying on her knees in her living room by herself. And so when you started with that and you said, "Well, I'm alone," I was by myself and I was like, "No, you weren't. Jesus was there."
Yeah. He's like, okay, any minute now.
He's like,
She's
I've got things for you to do, sister. Wake up. Let's go. I love it. And I am now when I'm coupling, see what's happening on my end, and I'm sure people who are listening are doing too, is they're starting to see how God was giving you and equipping you for what you were going to need in the later challenges that you were about to walk through, and that He wanted to equip you so that He could use it for His glory. You know, biblically speaking, God says that we're going to face challenges in this world. What is it? John 16:33. You know,
in
we're going
this
to
world
face
you will have
challenges.
trouble. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's not a matter of if, it's when and what they are. You know, more than likely, there's someone that's listening to this that either has a kiddo that's struggling with mental illness, or they're struggling in their marriage, or they're not real sure that this whole Jesus thing, that he's really real, that they haven't experienced his realness. And what do you say to that person who doesn't really, they're they don't know quite yet? How do you describe that for someone?
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. That's a kind of a tough question because it's almost so personal.
Mm,
And I've had women ask me, how do I have the relationship that you have with Jesus?
yeah. Good
And
question.
and for me, it really was the word. I was 37 when I came to Jesus, and
Okay.
I had done it all. I had been married before. I was a binge drinker. I had a bad alcohol problem before I met Harold, and even a little bit after I met him. And I had been through so many things. And so I always kind of tell people that I believe because I didn't believe,
Mm,
because
yeah.
because when he showed up to me so real, um, because I didn't believe before, there's one thing to believe it and talk about Jesus because he's a really nice ideal for us to hold on to, but
Hmm.
very few of us really truly can wrap our minds around the fact that he is living, he is with you in a way
Yes.
that is more tangible than you think. Just because he is invisible doesn't mean you can't see him.
Yeah. Oh, right. Yes.
And
Yes.
so it's hard for me to explain what that's like,
Sure.
except I guess that's why I do what I do, why I offer Bible studies and I try to give Bible teachings. And I throw a bit of my story in there as well. But the big part is it's from his word. That's how we can really experience him. The Bible gives us a full accounting of his character, as much as we can understand with our puny
Our
human minds, right?
sure. Sure.
But but this is where you get to know who his character is. And the beautiful thing about Jesus is wherever we are, come as you are doesn't mean wear your Daisy Dukes to church. Come as you are means, Jesus, I don't get it. I'm
Yeah.
not there yet, but show me, please show me who you are. Show me how to experience you. Lead me into those things. Lead me to the people who will guide me according to your word and your will. We need to just keep asking, ask for him and keep asking for him.
Yeah.
In Jeremiah 29, God says, you will find me if you seek me with all your heart. And so we need to do it with full, sincere hearts, with a true desire, with full awareness of our hunger for him, of our need for him, of our desperation for him. And so,
And if you don't
yeah,
have that desperation and hunger, it's about asking him for it. Um,
exactly. And
when you said that,
honestly,
yeah, no, go ahead.
no, I was going to say if any of your listeners just want to reach out to me and talk about it, I'm open because Jesus is my favorite topic of conversation. So,
I love you, Tisha.
let's do this. Let's figure it out, let's
Yes.
find them together. So,
Right. That's what this is about. When you said, come to me as you are and you don't, your Daisy Dukes, I think it means also bringing to him the baggage, those duffel bags of baggage
yes.
that we're all carrying. In your I see you, the representation of that season of homelessness where you're just carrying around all these duffel bags. Those duffel bags represented way more than just your earthly belonging. You were carrying with you so much pain and so much hurt, and I've been there. I get it.
Mhm.
I think it's a matter of, are we willing to take that baggage to him? He becomes real to me when I begin to try to look at a situation and pretend he's in the middle of it. One of the things I've been, this may sound strange to anyone who's not a believer, but you know what? Most of us here are probably believers. And if you're not, start praying this way because it's really helped me. But one of my prayers last year was that I said, Jesus, I want to know you in a way that is real, in a way that changes the way I see the world. And
Right.
so one of the things I've been doing when I'm praying is I'm trying to imagine his face when I'm praying, and I'm trying to look at him as he is looking at the situation. And so if
Mhm.
I'm praying over something about my children, or I'm praying over a situation through work
Mhm.
and going, God, I don't know what to do with this.
Mhm.
I've been praying and looking at Jesus's face. And if you ever try to just imagine his face in your prayer time, I swear I can just see him. And I know that may sound really weird or strange if you haven't done it before. Have you done this? Do you know what I'm talking about?
Well, I have my own little versions of it,
Okay, what do
yes,
you
so I
do?
get it.
All right, tell
Um,
me.
well, I have just different situations. Yes, he's always there, a part of it.
Yeah.
But I kind of, so there's that story. I believe it's in Second Kings. I believe it's chapter 6, where they're surrounded by the Syrian army, Elisha and his servant, And Elisha prays that his assistant can see what he sees. And when opens his eyes, he sees the chariots of fire,
Uh-huh.
heaven's army around the Syrian army.
Yeah.
And I kind of always keep that in my mind. So, like, if I'm in bed and I can't sleep, for instance, because I'm busy thinking about something, I kind of picture my room as like a situation room where there are all these angels, like kind of like those spy movie kind
Yeah.
of, where they're in the situation room and there are the
And like zoom,
monitors
zoom.
and people are
Yeah.
going
I have the
past with
music
like
in my background.
clipboard
Oh yeah. Dun,
and
dun,
they're
dun,
going
dun,
by,
dun.
yeah. And
Yeah.
and Jesus comes in and he's like, okay, so what's going on? And like the angels are updating him. Oh yeah, well, this is what's going on with her. I just kind of see like it's so amazing because he is so omnipresent. Like heaven is actually busy with us. Like they're
Yeah.
actually
Yes.
working on our stuff.
Yes.
And we're busy trying to step in and getting in the way all the time when really, right?
Yes.
We need
Yes.
to just be still and step back. And what is it, Exodus 14:14? I will fight for you, you have only to be still. They're busy, they've got this situation in hand, but we
Yes.
need to trust. And that relinquishing of control and that trust, that surrender, that is really hard for us to do. But
Yeah. Control
yeah.
freaks. Hello.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I do see Jesus. So that's one scenario. But yes, in pretty much everything, I see Jesus handling everything. When I sit down to write,
Huh.
I envision myself as a scribe, and the Holy Spirit is there kind of giving me dictation. And
Yes.
I'm just writing what he tells me.
Yes.
And very often I'm done writing and I have no idea what I've written until I read it back.
Same.
I
I've
have,
done that before. Yeah.
yeah, because it's the Holy Spirit working.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I did that in college. I remember when I was in college, I I was part of my story in college is similar to yours in a little bit different. I didn't end up homeless, but I ended up working 3 or 4 jobs. Did I had
Wow.
no money. I had a friend that I was babysitting for them, and by God's grace, what she paid me would cover my rent. But I accidentally stole a tank of gas one time. Didn't mean to, but I'd used a credit card that I thought was okay, and it was back then whenever it was still like, like those, like. Yeah,
Yes,
I'm
we're
showing my
aging
age here.
ourselves. Yeah.
And I was so broke. I had gone in and it was my parents' gas card, and I had used it, and I had bought some like bread and peanut butter and jelly, just like some very basic, like like the things you can buy at the convenience store, that kind of stuff. And then I came back and I got a tank of gas, and then I came back the next week and I was going to do the same thing. And the man was very gracious to me, but he said, no, no, no. He came out to the pump and he goes, no, 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 you not, you can't buy this. And he was not from here. I don't know where he was from, but he was like, no, no, you can't buy that. And it was very broken English. And he was like, you stole your gas last week. You stole those groceries. And I was like, oh my gosh, no, I didn't. I was mortified. I said, sir, I don't have the money to pay you. I don't have the money here. Like I can't. And he goes, it's okay. It's okay. God, go on, go on. And he just kind of shooed me off. And so I still think back about, so when you're sharing that story about how you're just homeless and God was still there with you. He's with us in all of these situations. He was with me for that man to give me grace and not ask me for the money. I probably just I know he had to have looked at me and gone, she don't have the money. But I look back at these times where we're so broken and we're so at the bottom and all we have are two empty hands. That's
Yeah.
all we have.
Yeah.
I think that's where he meets us so beautifully.
Mm.
Your heart for people is obvious. You do a lot of work to minister to other women and to help moms who might be struggling with mentally ill kiddos. You are doing a lot, sister. But you know what? The beautiful thing about it is, God tells us to work as though working for him, but because we really are, and what you're doing is beautiful. Who you are is beautiful.
Thank you, Christy. That means a lot. That means a lot. Thank
I'm
you.
so glad the Lord has allowed our paths to cross twice now. We've gotten to see each other twice, and I hope I get to see you again this summer.
Well,
Um,
yeah, if you'll
yeah,
be in Michigan, I'll be.
I will be in Michigan in July. I would not miss it for the world. Tell people where they can find you if they want to connect with you on social media or web. Where can they find you?
Well, I just redid my website
Okay.
to so that I can offer Bible studies and reading plans with live discussion with me, either online or in person. So you don't have to be local to connect with me there. So you could go to my website, tishavandereep.com, to learn more about what I have to offer. And then I'm also on Facebook, Tischa Van de Reep, writer speaker, or on Instagram, tisha.vandereep. So those are the main ways. And feel free to send me a private message. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them. I believe we're Christians. I don't like that whole kind of diva mentality
No,
that a lot of people
this is
seem
why I
to,
love you.
yeah, it's not my thing. So, reach out to me. I'm accessible. Let's walk this walk together. Let's journey to Christ together, get to know him better, and let him transform us together. So,
I
yeah.
can testify there is a sincerity to your faith, and when you say that, you really mean it. So my sweet friends who are listening, if you have questions for Tisha, I know she would love to hear from you. We as just people that are trying to follow Christ and do what he's asking us to do, either on a podcast or speaking and writing, reaching out or sharing this with somebody who needs to hear it, connecting people who maybe need to hear these words today, that is the best thing you can do for us. So, share this on Instagram or Facebook and tag us in it, or send us a message. We'd love to hear from you. This is always it's always a joy to hear how something has affected you or touched you, and that is the blessing. Tisha, thanks for being here today. You were a joy to me, my friend.
Thank you so much, Christy. I had so much fun.
Yes, come back soon, okay?
For sure.
Okay. Listeners, thanks so much for joining us today. And good Lord willing, I will see y'all again next week.